Alright, so I'm going to be looking at a primarily Junkrat game for Malakoplakia. Apologies if I butcher that name. And you mentioned specifically this game, that this Zarya gave you some troubles. I went ahead and just kind of skipped around the game already, just a little bit, and I think the Zarya in particular hasn't actually given you much trouble, in the sense that if it were any other tank, you'd still run into a lot of trouble. And I'll kind of explain this more as the game goes, but I think first and foremost, just from skipping around the replay a bit, you really need to work on your awareness of where pretty much people are at all times, right? And especially where the tank is, because if you consistently find yourself fighting the tank, you're probably doing something wrong. Especially if you have a bad matchup into him. Like, you don't want to just randomly spam the Zarya as Junkrat, right? That's probably the worst tank to shoot. You know she's not low on resources, like has no bubbles, right? Because you're actively giving her charge very easily. It's very easy to build charge off of Junkrat, so you want to do your best to stay away from like characters that you struggle against in general.
Plenty of bombs to go.
Ready for battle.
So one thing that's unique about Junkrat is that you can actually have effectively 3 of the sticky bombs, or whatever they're called, the concussion mines, I think. If you place one down and wait for the cooldown to come back online, you can have 1 on the floor or wall or whatever, and then 2 more in reserve, right? So generally speaking, especially on offense, you can set up some interesting, rollouts where you put one of the concussion mines on the floor, right? Launch yourself up in the air and then shoot, like, detonate another one beneath your feet. So you go extra high up in the air behind a building or something at an unexpected angle. And then use another one to, like, combo people with when you land, right? So it'll be interesting to see if you try that.
There is water everywhere.
I will
Is
add that
good?
that's very effective
5, 4,
because it diverts the enemy's attention, or it helps your or the enemies won't be looking at you, so someone will get value, right? So here, you're wasting a lot of time, right? As soon as the gate opens, you want to throw down a bomb if you're going to go for a play like this, right? Kind of like what I was already explaining. You already wasted 7 seconds. You could already have a concussion mine on the floor, and I think in that time you'd have your new one already off cooldown, right? So you could already be doing something instead of kind of, setting up the perfect jump right here. I don't think this is totally necessary. You could literally shoot a mine at the railing and blow it up, and then throw concussion mine immediately afterwards if there's some special rollout. I don't know all the special in-depth rollouts, but they're really not that important. You can kind of, for the most part, get a lot of value just by being creative and just kind of, I wouldn't say winging it, but just getting close enough. Unless you're like, very high on ladder with Junkrat, I'd say. So this is very dangerous. I'll show you from the Widow's perspective just how dangerous this is. Okay, actually, it's not as bad as I thought. If you go to someone else's perspective on their team, like the Zarya's, if the Widow listened to you, she definitely would have heard you. And my point is that you actually did not LOS her very well. You see, you're in her LOS right here, right? This is gold, I think, so she's not going to pay attention to a ton of stuff. She's just going to look main, but like, this is not a very hard, difference to look up to. Alternatively, if instead you just instead of doing just a single mine jump, right? You could, jump over here, for example, with just one, and then wait for a charge, and then high jump above this wall, and then completely LOS the Widow on your way down. That's an option, and you might be able to just put down one here and just double jump over the roof here anyways and stay out of our LOS that way, right? That's very important because as you get higher in rank and you jump in LOS of enemy hit scans, you'll pretty much instantly die every time. So still good kill here. You see there's a turret there? You shoot one thing and reload. There's really no reason to do that. Shoot one and blow up the railing, and then shoot the turret. You're shooting a little high. You can shoot the floor, right? The mines bounce, so use that to your advantage. You know, get a little closer, shoot the floor, and then the turret goes down in 2 mines. I also would not waste a concussion mine on something like a turret. You know, it's not even getting healed. It's gonna blow up in 2 mines, and it can't move. So like, you really shouldn't be missing this thing, right? Okay, this is what I was kind of talking about, struggling with the tank, right? You have no clue where the tank is. You just got 1 pick, and you drop main. I'm sure you may remember this Zarya is literally pretty much right below you. So you're seriously going to drop right in our LOS, right? If this was any other tank, a Rhine, a Roadhog, a Doomfist, you know, pick your tank. Doesn't matter. You're going to die here, right? This is not like straight in front of the tank at point blank range is not where you want to be. You see the Kiriko and just kind of like, you know, run at her. But you give up all your positioning to do so, right? If instead of dropping down, you literally just stood up here, the Zarya can't shoot you without wide peeking in the corner right. And if she does that, you can literally just back up and get out of her LOS, so you just fight the Torb. Or she has to walk all the way back up here and fight you on these stairs, right? So by sitting up here after you get the Widow pick and clear the high ground, right? You know, as long as you don't make a mistake of jumping into the Zarya, you can still get value. Alternatively, I think you're about to have a mine, right? You could jump above here, right? Do something like this, spam down here, or you could continue going behind, right? There are multiple options. I don't think any of them are particularly wrong. You know, you could play this corner here, put a trap down, and try to get a one-shot on Kiri or Juno, right? Both of them have 225, so you can actually mind combo them. You don't need to hit 2 directs or anything, so it's a very farmable backline for you as long as they don't react, which is going to be difficult, right? But instead, you choose the worst option of just dropping straight into Zarya, right? I'm sure you can know in retrospect. You didn't know she was there, but you can use sound cues as well as kind of the general cues of where the enemy team is positioned, right? Apologize. Okay, so you can see these people are still fighting here, right? The Kiri and Torb are still looking forward. There's a good chance the Zarya is right, like pretty much right beneath you if the Kiri is still looking forward, right? You know, a lot of supports and low ranks are pretty much tunnel vision on healing the tank, right? So, and you can see as soon as you fall, right? You can see the healing going to the Zarya, right? You know it has to be the Zarya there, right? So, there's pretty much 2 ways you could have known the Zarya was there, or the tank was there, and you kind of just ignored those cues, right? Here, be careful. Literally 3 people on your team are dead. Yeah, I would not be this far forward. This is very unlikely you'll kill anyone. You can just back up to like here-ish or something and wait for your respawners, right? And you can throw a trap here, and maybe if someone over-aggresses, like a Widow or something, or their Juno, you can like just peek the corner and instantly one-shot them, right? Like, you're lucky because this comp has a lot of heroes you can use the one-shot combo on, right? So, kind of shooting the Zarya here, you know, fighting the tank is not going to result in any picks, right? She's impossible to kill with both her supports up. You don't know how many bubbles she has. Kind of same mistake, you just dropped straight into them. You know, you gave up your positioning. You were perfectly safe just playing up with that high ground, right? You would at least have bought time for your team to respawn, so.
Come on, Jameson. This is your big chance to impress talent.
Okay, another small thing about Junkrat, you know, it's a little risky when they have the Widow, right? But kind of similar to the start of the round, you can immediately throw your concussion mine down, right? You can throw it down as you're walking, so that recharge is coming on as fast as possible, right? Just limiting your downtime really helps on every single throw. Same thing, you know, if you see the Zarya, don't spam her. You know, if you want to shoot her, just shoot 1 mine at a time. Worst case scenario, she bubbles your mine and gets like 20-ish charge or something along those lines, but it's a lot better than just feeding her, you know, full value in the bubble, right? Mines are just very easy to evade if they see where you're spamming from, right? Here, you can actually hear the Zarya walking up. And even if you didn't hear her walking up, you should know that there's a chance you'll get pushed here, right? The Widow just killed 2, and the Torb killed your Widow. So, playing this far forward is very aggressive. So again, if you have downtime and you're waiting for your team to come back, right? Just throw down a mine, right? So you get that start getting that recharge more quickly. Okay, so your Widow gets a pick. At this point, you should be going in, right? You want to cut off their retreat because your Widow just got the intro pick, and they really don't have a good way of punishing her without their Widow, right? It's not like they have a ball or a Doom Fist. So if you help your team peek here, you know, either setting up on a flank like you're about to do as soon as possible, or just hard pushing main as soon as possible, you'll win the fight. But instead, you just kind of waste time by walking all the way up. If instead you just threw down a mine right here, jumped into this corner, put down a trap, and just started spamming their supports and threw a concussion mine at them, you'd be cutting off their exit and outputting a ton of damage right here. You just had to rely to win this fight on your Widow getting 2, right? Without your presence on the front line, so... Okay, I don't like how aggressively you're taking this corner, right? You know they have to back up, so you can literally throw a trap down at this corner, and then just start spamming them. The only way you lose this fight is if, you know, they somehow wipe your entire team, or you feed, right? And you want to minimize the amount of damage you take here, right? So if you just stopped here, threw a trap down at the corner so they can't run into you, and started jiggle peeking the corner and just launching grenades at them and like throwing mines at them to try to get one shots, right? There's no way you die. And because you take so long and walk up so far, the turret's shooting you, right? And the Kiri has time to react to your footsteps, I presume, turn around and start contesting you, right? At least you live. Just keep that in mind for next time, right? Again, you can keep shooting that turret. That's probably a familiarity thing. You know, just getting used to the arc of the grenades. Okay, so on Junkrat, it's very important after the fight to set up on some like unexpected off angle somewhere to try to get a one shot, right? Especially against their comp again. Pretty much all their squishies are, you know, risking one shot by you, just shooting your primary and then following up with concussion. So you really want to be taking space. It's some like small enclosed corridor where you think they're going to set up once they come back, right? So ideally, you know, playing somewhere up here, you can set up here, right? Wait for their Widow to get too aggressive and jump up here. You know, something like that. Or play in this room over here, play in this room with Torbiz. Even if you don't get a kill, you still prevent them from taking the space, right? Who wants to fight a Junkrat in an enclosed area? Pretty much no one that's not a tank, right? You can knock people around, you do a ton of damage, and you can ricochet stuff off walls, right? So controlling these small little corridors is very powerful as Junkrat. See, you're not really contributing anything much here by sitting on cart and spamming. Even if you, and I'll say, you know, earlier I said go take that room where that Torb was. If you were in that room fighting that Torb, the Torb never would have had the opening to push your Kiri, right? There's a good chance you would have just completely killed him. Again, if you have downtime, you should be looking to throw a trap on the floor if you just want to spam. I think alternatively, the better play is just try to sneak by to your left area and play where the mega health pack is, right? And try to get up above them to deny their Widow the angle and put spam pressure down on them and try to go for one shots on their backline, right? Spamming from this far away is very unlikely to like actually accomplish anything on Junkrat. You really need to get close. You know, you have options to do that, like mine jumping or just trying to sneak through places. But Junkrat isn't like Fair or Torb. You get a lot of value from just spamming, you know, far range. You know, your projectiles are slow and they have that pretty tremendous arc, so you don't want to take fights that you're pretty much statistically likely to lose. Again, just think of how much more pressure you'd be putting on their backline here if you just went left side. Here, you should have just gotten out. If they push, which they're almost certainly going to do, you can just immediately die. Okay, so there you should know the Zarya is going to have both her bubbles. There's no way you kill her here. Again, the correct thing to do in that situation, if you're already committed to the hide, would be to just hide in the corner and see if and wait if she notices you and try to mind jump away from her. Okay, so actually, if you noticed earlier, the Zarya used 2 bubbles when she was in your first trap, and she just used another bubble, right? That means she's actually killable here. If you pop tire and blow her up quickly, their Kiri is probably not going to react. Okay, let's see what happens. A little late. Okay, that was a good tire. I guess maybe the health changes saved the Zarya. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why she didn't die there. I guess the tire was not quite close enough. Okay, so this is getting too close. Again, this is really sloppy. This is kind of the same mistake you made when you flanked the Torb and the Kiri. There's no reason to run straight into the Zarya here, right? You know she's weak, but you have so much cover to play around. Instead of literally walking into her and, still missing everything, imagine if you played right here, right? If she starts beating you, you won't die. You just literally do this, right? And she has no chance of killing you. And you can still spam her out. You still force her bubbles, right? Even if you don't immediately kill her. It's the correct play to try to kill her because she's super low. And if you just burst that bubble, she'd die. The way you did that was just, playing like you're a tank, right? Like you cannot pretty much ever do that as DPS. You can die very quickly. Unless you just don't miss. Okay. Rollout's a little slow again. I won't dwell on that too much. Okay, there. If you see your Dooms fighting the Torb, just try to spam all your damage at him as he's peeking that doorway, right? About a second ago. See here? Little slow. Just shoot a concussion mine in there, sorry, and just detonate it on the Torb's feet so you do as much damage as possible, right? If the Zarya is weak and you see her use a bubble, just blow her up. I see a lot of mistakes. People make this mistake. If Zarya has, only 1 bubble or so and she's weak, just keep shooting her, especially if she has no supports, right? Because it does not give her that much extra health, right? Just two mines, blow up her shield, and she'll die to another one, so. There's really, especially like as you go in higher ranks, there's no reason not to shoot a Zarya. If she has high charge already, right? Because you're denying her space, right? Obviously it depends on the exact requisites in the fight, right? You just don't want to waste time shooting the 500 or the full health Zarya if she bubbles all the time if they're a better target, but you also don't want her to take space, right? Okay, so you already show this angle, right? They're already going to be expecting you again here. Okay, so you see the soldiers already looking at you. Instead of re-peeking this angle, what if instead you just walked out here, threw a trap on the floor, and started just spamming these people with concussion mines, right? Imagine if you were here right now, you'd literally just immediately kill 2 and almost kill the Torb, right? Instead, you peek the soldier, and you get scared, right? I have a feeling you have a tendency to get scared when people are shooting you, and make the worst play possible. You just continue to back up, and again, you just fall straight into the tank, right? If the Zarya had better target priority, she would have walked forward and killed you there. Or if the soldier had better aim, he would have killed you there too, right? That's literally the worst play you could have made, right? If instead, even if you decided, I want to re-peek this angle, which is not the worst play ever, right? If instead of backing up, you just walk to your right, just a little bit, the soldier can't shoot you anymore, right? You're perfectly safe. So, actively think of where the enemy's shooting you from, or can shoot you from, and do your best to stay out of their damage. and then you continue to make the mistake of fighting the Zarya, right? So remember at the very beginning I said you do not want to be fighting tanks you have a bad matchup against, especially like this close. That's how tanks beat. You know, they have better health and they have defensive cooldowns, so they have a better chance of killing you than the other way around. Alternatively, you should have mind jumped away. You know, you can even mind jump the back up the high ground and continue pressuring the back line, right? And just wait to get healed. Because what you're doing now, yeah, you're still alive, but you've wasted all your resources on this Zarya that's not going to die, and you've wasted a ton of your support's attention healing you instead of, you know, doing damage or helping your Doom commit or something along those lines, right? So again, you shouldn't be fighting hard here. I'll say this in particular was not a Zarya issue. Imagine if that was literally any other tank, you still would have died, right?
I'll keep trying till I run out of limbs.
Again, you know, get in the habit of mind jumping back to the fight as soon as possible.
60 seconds.
At least in an angle where you can spam. Again, I know your Doom just died, but again, you know, put a mine down on the floor or something. Try to get into an offensive angle. Spamming the Zarya doesn't really accomplish much. If she's good, you know, she's not going to ever die there. So again, don't shoot the Zarya. And just to show you, you actually had a way better target here. Don't tunnel the tank. You see there's a Torb to your right there? Instead of shooting the Zarya, shoot the Torb. You're way more likely to, you know, force him out. And then if he runs away, then you can start shooting the Zarya, right? And then you have no clue where the supports are, right? Imagine instead of just spamming there, you waited and saw if any of the supports, you know, overstep their boundaries and continue following the Zarya forward. You could have just one-shot them. So there, your only option was to. I don't like this tire. You know, you kind of waited too long to use it, in my opinion. And this Zarya could have destroyed it, right? She could have ignored the Doom and destroyed it, so you got no value. You do not want to tire in front of LOS of the enemy team, right? I would say it may be a good tire, but you have no clue how many bubbles this Zarya has. She probably has. Since it's gold, she probably doesn't have any. Yeah, but better Zaryas will not have 0 bubbles here. So they'll just burn your tire before you get any value. This is okay. So yeah, if you're not getting shot, you need to spam. Put pressure on them at all times. Either set up on an off angle and try to threaten a one shot, or just keep putting pressure down. You were kind of not doing either. Okay, that's probably the end of the round there.
Ready for battle.
Okay, so far in this first round, I think you really need to focus on paying attention to where the enemy tank is in particular, but trying to get a good idea of where everyone is in particular, right? 2, I want you to start pressuring different angles than like the main like cart angle more, right? Because I'm sure you've seen the different spots I've shown you so far. That you would have gotten a lot more value. Okay. And 3, I say get more get back to the fight. You know, be a bit more proactive with your cooldowns. I don't think you've used your mines quite enough, especially just to get around and get back to the fight quickly.
Stop the payload.
Here, look how closely you're walking to the Zarya. If she was better, she would have killed you. Or forced out all your support's attention to save you, right? She kind of has the same problem that you do. She keeps shooting the tank with better options available. So instead of focusing on the Zarya, imagine if you were playing top, you know, up here or something, somewhere around here, right? You could look down and help your team with this Reaper, you know? Or even if you were playing right where you are, you could help your team with a Reaper, because he's terrorizing your backline right now, right? You just killed one. And if you didn't, you know, focus all your attention on the tank, you probably would have killed him. You know, obviously you get the shots, but even just forcing him out just a second sooner may have saved your Widow, right? Here you need to be getting out. 2 people in your team died, right? So I would do your best. Just try to run away.
I still think we can win.
I think ideally, because you wasted your mines, you could have also tried to get a kill on their back line and slow down their push, right? And make them come back, because chances are you're going to die, but I think it's a good habit in general to make as few mistakes as possible. So you do your best to learn. Okay, you can hear the Reaper above you. It's okay that you ignored him, but just be aware. Unfortunate. Just take your time with that a bit more. I feel like you have a very bad habit of just holding just W in particular, right? There's no reason, first of all, to wide peek this corner, right? And secondly, there's no reason to keep walking and messing up your aim. If no one's looking at you, and no one is looking at you right now, you can literally, you know, obviously don't just stand completely still, but take a second, see which direction the enemy's moving in, right? And then line up your shots. Just like haphazardly inputting movements right here is making you miss, right? Because the Kiri makes an unexpected turn actually towards you if you're standing still, right? And you don't account for that, and you miss your grenade on her or whatever, right? It was a good attempt. That's pretty much what you want to do, but that could have been a lot smoother. Just keep shooting her, yeah. If she has no supports, feel free to just keep shooting her. Again, if you have a pick set up somewhere, right? You don't want to be sitting main, right? Especially on defense, you can play these corners and get one shots. Their comp's a little bit harder now, but still almost killing someone and forcing out their defensive cooldowns, right? Or maybe someone else gets the final blow. It's very valuable. Spamming main against a Zarya is very dangerous. So even if you don't get one shots, right? If you picked a better place to play than main, you stop the enemies from taking an angle. Like, for example, if you were playing up here for whatever and waiting for like a soldier to run up or the Reaper to TP up again, you could fight this Reaper and stop him from getting a flank on your team, right? The Reaper's kind of doing what you want to do, right? You're a proficient flanker. You don't want to be sitting main very often. See, when you sit main, everyone's looking at you and you have to fight the tank a lot. It's a good trap there. Here, I would not use your tire because you just killed their tank and the Moira just killed their, whatever her name is. The Juno, I think. So it's very unlikely you'll win this, lose this fight, sorry. So using the tire right now is just, you know, kind of a waste.
The wheel of progress.
Right, my ultimate is ready. Join me.
Surrender to my will.
Again, don't walk back to main, right?
Don't tell anyone.
So yeah, just do a better job of setting up here. I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of the same mistake, right? So I do like this rotation, actually. It's just a little too late. I like that you see the Zarya's walking in, right? And you're setting up an off angle to try to catch her supports, right? Or backline somewhere. This is definitely not bad, right? She doesn't know you're going this way per se. Perhaps it's a bit aggressive. You're swinging too early because if she waits, she can kill you. But it's kind of, it's fundamentally the correct idea. So. You make the mistake of just kind of like earlier with the soldier, you just keep blindly backing up and giving up your position, right? You just walk straight to the grab. I will say this is the danger of not being set up on the thing beforehand. The Zarya kind of already cut off your exit. You just didn't have another play where you were.
They need our help.
Okay, so we swapped to May. I'm not too familiar with May, but I'm sure, you know, there's still some fundamental mistakes you're making here. So yeah, you also respect the Zarya's range, right? No reason to walk into her. Just keep spamming her with the icicles, right? There's no reason for you to walk into her beam range this early. Instead of walking main, right? What if you took just even a slight, I don't even know if you call this an off angle here, but what if you just played out here, right? You have good cover here, you have a mega here, and you've, you know, you can easily kite the Zarya away if she decides to start pushing you, right? Like you have a lot of space to play around with instead of just walking straight back into Zarya. So, you know, do your best space from the enemy tank. I'm not sure if you try to wall off the Zarya there or wall yourself off, but I think that's an okay wall if you wanted to save yourself. The Zarya's not going to die here because you only saw you use one bubble, right? You have pretty much no help here. You know, no one's shooting the Zarya with you, so I would not rely on your team to use your wall and blow her up, right? You typically want to use wall after the tank's already lost resources or they're a vulnerable tank, a very vulnerable tank to wall, like someone with no shield or like no like mobility, right? And ideally, if you wall to save yourself there, you want to keep backing up and finding a better angle so the Zarya doesn't have, you know, damage opportunities. Okay, it's good you got the Curie, but I don't think you were aiming for her. That's correct target priority. Okay, that's good. I do like, however, that you turn for the Juno there, so. Just keep spamming. And the time they were respawning, I would have probably swapped to a different angle. Even if it's not particularly different, again, you know, you really don't want to be standing main and eating a ton of damage. You can play something like here, right? You have a much better angle as they come on the bridge. And you're still close to help your team, like, get a wall or something, right? Like, imagine if you're playing down here, right? The Zarya decides to ignore you and just walks this way, right? You can wall her off from her team. And your team can blow her up or waste all of her bubbles or something like that. And you're still relatively safe in here. Even if you don't know the Reaper wasted his Wraith, I don't think you could have known that without watching the replay. If they start pushing you, you know, fine. Just back up and play cart. Unfortunately, you can't go too far away as May, especially in overtime, right? Or close to like the last fight territory. But doing something except setting on cart is ideal. Now you just waste your wall to keep yourself alive, right? Not a situation. So yeah, just react sooner with Ice Block. I would say in general, don't be afraid to use cooldowns to save yourself, but I just don't think you react all the time. Okay, so in general, I want you to first and foremost respect the enemy tank more. You know, try not to get close to them. You know, fight them if you don't have some sort of advantage, right? You can spam them down, right? Tanks usually have pretty bad range. You can win like resource trades if they decide to stand out in the open, right, as DPS. But you really should be keeping a track of where everyone is. But ideally, just starting with the tank is probably the best bet, right? Because if you know where the tank is, you can at least assume and be right, you know, the vast majority of the time, that everyone is at least behind like an imaginary line where the tank is, right? They might not all be following them like ducks, but they're going to be behind like where the tank is controlling space-wise. So do your best to stay out of their range and just know where they are. Secondly, I want you to really be thinking about where you can set up before a fight and as a fight to put different lanes of pressure on your enemies, right? You were playing main pretty much all game, And the problem with playing main is that you're going to be staring at the tank all game, right? Tanks are kind of generally forced to play main, especially like Zarya. She has no mobility. She has a really hard time of getting off main, right? So if you just take off angles, right, and do your best to control the backline, especially against Junk versus Zarya, because she's gonna have a hard time turning around and bubbling them and, you know, keeping her pressure on the front line up, right? You know, you split the enemy's team attention, and you can get a lot of kills a lot more easily if you do not have to go through the tank first, right? You know, you can catch people off guard, and you won't be fighting the tank if you play on the off angle, right? So keep that in mind, and particularly, especially on Junk and Mei, right? You want to play in enclosed areas where people have a hard time fighting you. Even if you don't get kills, you'll still force people not to take those angles, right? Like if a Widow wants to, she can't jump high ground into you if you're controlling that area as a Junkrat, right? 3, I want you to use your cooldowns more often. You have a habit of sitting on trap. I didn't really talk about it much because I never really got the opportunity to. But you want to trap off, generally speaking, kind of a doorway where you're playing. I'll try to find an example here real fast. So like, you know, this isn't the best example, but if you just had a trap set up right in this doorway, right, just literally right here, you know, pretty much on this corner, people cannot push you in this, you know, directly run into you through this doorway, right? Because 1, of your spam, and 2, they risk getting trapped, right? You know, that's a lot better. It's an extra thing for your opponents to think about, right? And there's no reason not to, especially at the beginning of a round, right? Your trap will come back online before you actually get to the fight, right? But use your trap more. I don't think you really use your trap very much in general. And then 2, I want you to use your concussion mines a lot more proactively to try to get into better angles, right? Like Junkrat has the mobility to fly around the map somewhat, right, and get into unexpected like enclosed areas. If you want more ideas of like where to set up, you can watch some Junkrat videos. I think Aquamarine and Vulture, I believe, make YouTube videos, and you know, you can garner some ideas from them, right? I think that about concludes it. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask, and yeah, I'll try to tell you where my top 3 tips for you are.